Hi everyone, Diana Rankin here with your messages and predictions for the week of April the 8th to the 14th. Gosh, April 8th to the 14th already. The time is going by so quickly, isn't it? And it's going to continue to go by zip, 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 zip for most of us. We're aware of that. The earth is spinning faster and faster and faster. Well, we have a lot to get to today, so I want to, first of all, I want to start with some predictions, and then I want to tell you about a story and how I protect my home and myself, and then we'll get to Philip's message for us this week. So I want to, first of all, say thank you to all who have come and come back. Thank you for those of you who welcome. To those of you, this is your first time here with us. And for all of you who make comments, I'm very, very grateful for your kind and loving comments. Thank you. And feel free to make your comments, to comment on each other's comments, and get a discussion going. It's great. It's wonderful. So I try to get to those as quickly as I can. I don't always get to them immediately as soon as they come in, but I eventually get to them, and I try to get to them within the week. So thank you so much. All right, let me give you a couple of predictions for this week, and then we'll get to this story I want to tell you. Stocks, tumble, recovery, fall cycle. That's going to continue. There's a tumble, then there's a recovery, and then there's a bigger fall. That's the cycle that's going to continue, and it's going to continue until late summer. So players, if you play in the stock market, just be aware of that and be careful. The weather this week is going to be harsh in the central area of the country, also the southeast along the coast and mid-Atlantic. Around that area, we can expect some harsh weather. And up in the northwest along the coast, we're looking at some harsh weather up there. In Europe, along the coast in Europe, it looks like there's like an exceptionally high tide, so there could be animals coming ashore because they're confused. All over the world right now, we have been and will continue experiencing some really uncanny weather or unpredictable weather. I'm afraid this hurricane season is not going to be pretty either. So, it is what it is, and I want to tell you how I protect myself, and you can perhaps do the same. U.S. government. We're going to continue. It's deteriorating, and it's going to continue to deteriorate before it falls apart. And as I said that, and I did this, my beautiful Daisy came up here. She's a healing dog, and so when she thinks I'm distressed, she comes up to make it all better. So she's here with us right now. Although I'm in a chair, so you can't see her because it has her head on my lap. I'm checking out my notes here because I woke up about 4 o'clock and said, "Okay, Philip, my spirit guide, what is it you want us to say?" And I didn't want to read it word for word, so I just took some notes. So I'm checking those notes out. And what Philip is saying is, through this week, the beginning of this week of the 8th to the 14th, it's going to look like things may have settled down in the U.S. government. By the end of the week, we'll know better. For most of us this week, especially those of us who are sensitive, it's going to be necessary to get extra rest. It's like the body's just going to require it. And this may go on for a while, but definitely there'll be periods where the body says, "I need extra rest," and please take advantage of those times if you can, as much as you can. Not if you can, but as much as you can. I'm afraid next flu season is going to be exceptionally harsh. So we want to build up that immune system while we can, while we are healthy. So do your best to build up your immune system. That's going to require extra rest. That's okay. You can get it. There are some new diseases that will be coming, even some this summer, and this is worldwide, that these new diseases will be affecting us worldwide. So get that immune system as strong as you can, build it up and that requires extra rest, proper diet, good exercise. We know what it requires, so do it. This is the week to start it. Okay, now I don't need my notes, and I can take those off because I want to tell you a little bit of one of my stories. The other morning at Tuesday of what would now be last week, but it's where I'm videotaping. It's still this week, but earlier in the week, let's just do it that way. Earlier, tornadoes went through, and of course, not right where I live. It was maybe 40 minutes south of me. Fortunately, no humans or animals, no pets, no livestock were damaged, but there was property damage. And where I live in a woods, so the strong winds always are of a concern when there are trees that have been soaked for a couple of days. And we had flooding and rain that didn't stop. So, that said, I woke up about 4 o'clock the morning after the tornadoes went through, and what woke me was the sound of wind, and it was rushing, roaring wind. And like I say, living in the woods, there's reason for concern. So what I do is I imagine this divine light around my home, and certainly around the animals. And I mentioned this with my prayer. The prayer I use, I mentioned this in last week's video. But when there's this extra strong need for more protection, what I did is I called in the angels. I call them Hazel's angels because Hazel was a friend. I used to study, as some of you know, back in the 90s, early 90s with Jean Houston. And I would attend her mystery school up in New York. And when I did that, I met a woman by the name of Hazel. And Hazel always said that during World War II, Hazel, I believe, was in the USO. And so she was involved in helping soldiers. And she always said that every night she would pray for the soldiers, and she would send an angel to help those who needed to transition. And she would send those who needed an angel who were in the hospital, or those who needed protection in the war. So she said at the end of World War II, she had this whole group of angels. She calls them Hazel's angels. And she said, whenever you need to call upon them, do so. So I called upon Hazel's angels to protect my home, and of course our four-legged ones. And of course the two-legged ones as well. And what I felt as soon as I did that is I felt a dome circling our home, and the outbuildings as well. And in fact, I felt it circling the land to also protect the wildlife. And as I felt this dome reaching over me, this thick feathery dome, the wind sounded more at a distance than right outside the window. So I pass that along for you. And it's not the first time I've used Hazel's angels to protect physical property. Another time I used Hazel's angels to protect physical property was, I hesitated just a moment because as I looked into the camera, I saw from here down into here, I'm seeing a light. I don't know if you're able to see it. I hope you are, but when talking about Hazel's angels, and I'm seeing this light, so hopefully we're sharing that, because I believe that could be one of the angels who's with us at the moment, or it could be Hazel. So that said, another time I was able to use Hazel's angels is I used to keep an office in a smaller town not far from where I live called Bellefontaine. And when I had the office in Bellefontaine, I would see clients there. Now, if you would like a session, the information's below. Just contact me through the website, and you can we do phone sessions. I no longer have an office, so all my sessions are by phone or Skype. But at that time, I had an office, and I would always say a prayer and ask the angels to watch over the office and keep everything safe while I was gone. So I was getting ready to leave for the office one day and got a phone call from one of the other people in the office who said the building was on fire. When I got there, it was surrounded by police and reporters and people and fire trucks, and it was just what you would expect when there's an office building on fire. So I just kind of sat there and with other people who had offices there, and it was like, okay, we have no idea how bad this is or what's going on. And after a couple of hours, one of the firemen came up to me and said, we're going to take you inside the building. We don't know what damage is in your office yet, but if there's anything you want to recover. And I thought, yes, my computer. I need to just get the computer and see what smoke damage there is and get that out of there. So the police officer and I walked up, and the office next to me, there were two doors into the building, and we couldn't go in the one building because there was this huge hole at the head of the stairs, and my office neighbor, the office next on one side of me, there was just this hole down to the office below. We were on the second floor, and the office below was just gone. There was nothing there. It was just a big hole. The office on the other side of me, there was fire that was started, but it went out. It was like there was a pile put at one of the doors, and it didn't catch fire. It burned a little, but then it went out. And so my office had two doors to it, and neither door, like these other doors, had paper, like piles of paper thrown in front of it. And in front of my office door, there were no piles of paper. And so I had no damage in my office. There was some smoke that didn't smell very good, but no damage. And when I took the computer down to the computer repair shop, they said it was fine, no problems. And so my office, the fireman kind of looked at me and he said, this is really unusual. This is really something that you have no damage. And the people next door to me, the fire had stopped at their door, and so their damage was very minimal. But on this side, they could not get back into their office for months until all the repairs were done. But as long as we used the other stairway, we were allowed back in our offices. I attribute that to the angels. So please use the angels. Hazel's angels are there to help you. Let's see what Philip has to say. And for those of you, I know some of you have this book at home. It is an oracle book. Each page has a different wisdom on it. And people tell me they use it either at night before they go to bed to see what the next day is, what the message is, or when they wake up in the morning to see what that day's message would be. My other books are over my shoulder here. And the next book that's coming out is called Joy, How to Create, or The Art of Creating a Happy Life, I believe is the full title. That'll be out in a couple of months, and it's 52 stories and practices, one per week, to create a happier life and live in joy. So let's see what message Philip has for us this week. We just flip through and think left page or right page, and then we'll just kind of stop, or we don't have to flip through. We can just like open like that, and that's our page. I'm hearing right, but often we read both pages, but our message is on the right. Okay, very simple. When you do not hear the answer, it is because you are not listening. When you do not hear the answer, it is because you are not listening. You know, Spirit always answers our questions. We don't always like the answer, however. And we in the U.S., we don't like many of us, most of us don't like what's going on in our country right now. And yet, how are we going to learn about those who think differently, act differently, behave differently than perhaps we do in our lives. We have to be able to reach out, to reach our hand out and say, help me understand, not to argue, but to understand and to have respectful dialogue between us so that we can grow as a nation and grow as a world in greater love and understanding for each other. So whatever your question, when you do not hear the answer, it is because you are not listening. Let's start listening to ourselves and to each other. The left side, I'm going to read that too because I think it's important, but the right side is actually our message. So the left side just says, when you say goodbye, it is to part the way for a new hello. When you say goodbye, it is to part the way for a new hello. Well, my friends, we're about to say goodbye. And from Daisy, I'm looking at her now. She's over there on her bed. We wore her out a little bit yesterday. There was a tree down that came down in the lane. And so we went out and blessed the tree, and then a neighbor came over and cut it up, and it'll be used for firewood. Daisy didn't like the chainsaw. She kept arguing with the chainsaw or barking at it. We had to put her away in her pen so she would not get hurt. But it was scary, but it was kind of also cute. So anyway, my friends, from Daisy and from me, Diana, we love you. We thank you so much for being with us this week. We wish you a most blessed and peaceful week. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your love, your comments, and thank you, most of all, for holding love in our world. We so need it. Thank you for adding the love you do to the world. I love you. Daisy loves you. I love you. Bye for now.